Hey everybody, this is Matthew Reale from AquaReale, and I am standing in front of one of our standalone fountainscapes. We have a water wall, we have boulders, with a basin, self-recirculating system. These are great for kids. It's at a school here. At the end of the day, the kids come over, they hang out and play. They move rocks around, they touch the water. The birds love it. As I was standing here, I watched a bird come out of this dogwood and sit on top of that wall. They love sipping the water. The honeybees love it. And listen to that sound. This is a great small feature for your yard when you don't have the space. You want something really elaborate, but it just doesn't fit. Less than a 10 by 10 space this will fit in. Actually, it's a 5 by 5 space. We've made it a little bit bigger with the boulder work around it, made it more interesting. They've got the rose bushes planted here, so we get birds, butterflies, everybody, especially the kids. The kids absolutely love it. Price point with this is around your $6,000 water feature. Nice entry-level feature to get into. Self-circulating. It's got a light, the sound of the water, the nice boulders. It's simple, very easy to take care of. That's another thing about ponds. Ponds involve a little bit of maintenance. These require very little. Turn it off, you vacuum it out, you blow the leaves off, you start it back up again, you're pretty much good to go. Again, simple price point for a small house, great for kids, great for animals, and it's very safe. The one point I wanted to say about it is these are great if you want a certification from some sort of, that make your yard like 100% natural. Audubon Society, birds need the water, deer need the water, they all like that. Having one of these in your yards, you could certify your yard as this, a certified haven or a certified, natural element, all native, sound the water, running water. This will get you there. Hey everybody, Matthew Reale here again with AquaReale. We're at a walled location, as you can see, and I'm here to talk about this installation we put in. So the gentleman had a pond here before. It was 20 some odd years old. It ran its course. He was ready for a new pond. He had a specific budget in mind he wanted to stick to. So we came out, we evaluated what he had, and we came up with this little design. It's a 6 by 8 pond. We used a recycled skimmer, and we used his old little mini biofalls, and we added a new mini biofalls. That was in a way of trying to keep within his budget because he had a tighter location. You can see we couldn't get any machines, any types of power tools in there. It was all done by hand, so we had to use very small rock that we can get in and out. But it just shows you can do a pond in a tight space. His bedroom's adjacent to this view, so every night he looks out to this and sees this pond with lights in it. This was a 17.5 job, $17,500 for this size. We kept it to that cost because we were able to use some of his recycled materials and bring some other recycled materials into play. We planned it up as best we could. We've got the sound. You can see the 2 biofalls. We got a mini one here, another one here. Skimmer's opposing me on this side over here. Everything draws that way. You can see the water's crystal clear. It's planted well, and it's in a very unique location. We use driftwood for interest, and we try to use a lot of his rock as well as some new rock. Again, we were trying to stick within a budget to make this happen, so we brought some of our own rock, but we used a lot of his existing rock in this installation. 24 inches deep. His last pond wasn't quite 24. We gave him the full 24. He's got fish. He's got a mini fish cave in here. And you can see we've got a Buddha. We've got some other figurines. And as I mentioned before, it is fully lit up, so you can imagine at nighttime sitting in your bedroom staring at this and listening to the sound of running water. It just goes to show you don't have to have acres and acres and acres to have a nice little water feature in your yard. So as you can tell, this pond's in a very unique location. It's not what you'd have on a normal property, but we built this pond with the owner's ideas and needs in mind. They're an older couple, they don't have children anymore, so it was built for, to have the depth out of it. It isn't the kind of pond you're gonna have kids climbing in and babbling and playing. It wasn't designed that way, but it could have been, but because the homeowners had certain needs, we designed it for them to use their way. Mostly viewing, mostly enjoying The dogs don't come in here. Kids won't really come in here, so that's what it's built in mind. Doesn't mean it cannot be built like that. If a different homeowner was here, we could have tailored it to that homeowner as well. So the construction process, this job was a little more different. We didn't have the ability to dump stuff in their driveway. They only had a 2-car driveway. Good morning, everybody. This is Matthew Reale from AquaReale. Today I'm here at my personal home to discuss fountainscapes. As you can see, we have an array of 3 different fountainscapes here. We've got the sphere, we've got the classic basalt columns, and we have the spillway bowl. So each of these are very unique. As you can see, one bubble is a single, one's a triple, and one kind of has a continuous rim bubbling over the edge. I have all these features in one system. They can also be sold as individual units. Each one can be its own fountainscape element. We have them as a 3-scape, as I would call it. It's kind of 3 different pieces together. The unique part about this whole piece is that all these units are being drained down to a central pumping station, which I'm basically standing on top of right here. There's a pump vault down here, holds 2 pumps, which basically power all these features. We can do a single pump on one and get a lot of flow, kind of like the ball and the basalts, or we can diffuse the flow, have less flow, more diffuse over the edges. Kind of on this bowl, it's kind of spilling over the edge. You see a slight bubble over the middle. Great thing about these, they're great for kids, they're great for animals. Dogs love these. Every day we have a dog come up, drinks out of the bowl, every single day. We have a woman around the corner brings her grandchild every day. They sit on that rock over there, he plays in the bowl. It's great to get the kids back to nature. It's one thing I love about these is that they're very friendly. I can come up, I can just sit down and hang out in here, get wet, listen to the water, enjoy the day. When my son was little story here, when my son was little, we had a different feature. He used to take his little cars, he'd drop them in the stream, and he'd watch the cars float down, just like over and over again. It was countless, I don't want to say hours, it was more like minutes of him, but it got his attention on the water feature, and he really enjoyed it. He enjoyed smashing water with his hands, he enjoyed flowing it down. Again, back to the animal part, not only dogs, birds. The birds like sitting on top of these rims that don't get a lot of flow so they can drink the water. That's one thing great to see. Honeybees love it. They love getting the water out of it. I can't say deer, we don't have deer in the neighborhood, or maybe we get fox at night, but a lot of the local animals, peoples, nature, they all come to the watering hole to hang out. Another unique piece about this particular feature is it's also a rainwater harvest system. As I was saying, I'm standing over the basin. The basin extends back to those rocks over there. It holds about 700 gallons. My house and my neighbor's house, the stormwater it runs off is pumped into this system. So every time it rains, my system fills up. So I really don't need the use for an autofill because Mother Nature tends to take care of it. I may have pointed before, there's a pumping station below here. In this system, there's 2 pumps. One pump is just running the bowl, and one pump, a larger pump, is running these 2. So I can valve, like with a valve system, I can create the flow, desired flow that I want through these 2 features. Also part of these features, you can see the boulders. There's lots of large boulders you can see. We try to make them as natural as possible. The rocks add dimension, the rocks add somewhere to sit, and the rocks tend to hide the landscape. Also being plumbed into this system, there's a stream, which is behind me about 50 feet. Again, it incorporates a couple of these elements in there. We'll show it to you in a little bit. All part of the stormwater management system. So just go back on a couple of the points. Great for kids, great for animals, and it's very soothing. It's very soothing to the ear. These fountainscapes individually, if you called up and said, I'd like this spillway bowl, that's a 1-day installation. We come out with 2 guys. Sometimes we bring out a small backhoe, sometimes we do not. We dig, install a basin, pump, and do a little bit of the rock work around it. It's about a 1-day installation. If you said to me, Matt, I really like the stormwater management option, I like all these features, this whole feature can take up to a week to install. and we would be bringing out a machine and a little bit more in the equipment end to make that happen. We try to really look at the yard when we're placing these out to get the right spot. If you say to me, I'm really interested in that stormwater management option, I'm gonna look at where your downspouts are and how I can take them to an area by gravity, because the only way to really move water without the use of additional pumps is by gravity. So finding your downspouts, we find a spot that's just below that by a foot or two so we can get that water to that spot. Now sometimes we do have to create our own little elevation changes to port that water down to the basin. But those are simple, and we use the excavated soil that we dig out from the basin to create the hill. So we're trying to cut costs away, not have to bring extra soil and stuff out to make these things happen. These systems individually will cost around $6,000 to set up in your yard. A whole system like this, you could be looking anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000 with the stormwater management option. And that's soup to nuts, everything from start to finish. Backhoes, rocks, gravel, liners, anything you need to run the system. Hey everybody, Matthew Reale here from AquaReale. I am standing at one of our 8x11 ponds that we installed this past season. It is traditional 8x11 with a few upgrades to it. As you can see, the size with the upgrades has an extended stream, 10-foot stream with some falls on it. It does have our traditional 2500 series biofalls. Skimmer, instead of our traditional skimmer, we did a skimmer intake, which skimmer intake reduces some of the maintenance that you would normally have on a normal skimmer. For example, normal skimmer, you have a skimmer basket and pads to clean out. On this, the material gets skimmed into an area on top of gravel. So instead of you pulling things apart, you just have to grab the leaves from on top of the gravel out of there. So it takes your maintenance intervals on your skimmers down. There's a little bit more of an upfront cost, an upfront investment for that, but in the long run, there's less parts that can go wrong, less parts that can break, and it's sometimes even easier to get to the pump because the pump is in a vault rather than in a skimmer below a series of pads and baskets and things like that. This pond was designed, basically, as you can see, I'm in a very nice garden setting. It was designed for wildlife and insects in mind. We tried to create some lower areas in the stream for birds. We did a lot of plantings in the pond, and the customer has done a lot of plantings outside the pond to encourage a healthy insect population and have a nice watering hole for animals here and there. There are no lights on this pond. She wanted to keep it dark at nighttime, so we honored it on that one. We do have a small fish cave in here, and as you can see, there's a small bridge. She wanted to have a pathway to go over so she could access this portion of the yard. This out-of-the-box design, if it had a skimmer on it, without the stream, would have been about $20,000, but with the intake and with the extended stream, it's a $25,000 price tag for this one. Again, upfront investment for a skimmer intake. It just gives you a little more time between intervals of cleaning, and the length of stream just gives you a little more action on the stream, a little bit more to look at. But either way, it came out nice. It fits well in this woodland setting, and with the types of rocks we use, which are again hand-set boulders, it fits the property in the area really well. You see a really nice finished pond here, but prior to this pond, it was just basically a 10x6 concrete pond that was 6 inches deep. We had a few discussions on what to do and what we could do. We discussed an out-of-box design, which had been a traditional 8x11, but she had some concerns in mind, some things that she wanted to add in and change, and we are always willing to entertain other ideas if it makes sense for the installation we're going to put in. Sometimes people have unrealistic expectations on having really, really long streams and small ponds. We always educate what makes sense for the size you're choosing. And in this situation, she wanted to have lesser maintenance, a little bit longer of a stream, and we were able to accommodate her on this idea here. So with this size pond, the question always comes up with how many fish can I have in there? Half a dozen to a dozen small fish are usually what I recommend. I always say start small, 2 to 4 inches, like little guys. That way you can feed them and they can grow into the size of the pond. If you start to fish too big, too soon, it can end up crashing the system and your system will have no time to balance out. So always start small with a small pond like this. Let them grow into the size so that way you can monitor the conditions. Is the filters are the filters keeping up? Are they keeping things clear? Because sometimes too many fish, too much food can crash the system. So 6 to 12 small fish in a pond this size, minimal feeding, let them grow to the size of the system. You should have, many years of success. So a pond like this with a demolition takes about a week, about a 5-day installation time frame with the demolition of the old pond, start to finish. Now again, this particular pond is a distance from the road, so we had to trek across a fair amount of lawn, which we had to do some repair to, and we had to store stuff back in the yard rather than the driveway. So there was a little bit more repair to do, but normally this design is a 5-day installation. So on this 8x11 design, maintenance. So the fact that she installed an intake is going to take her maintenance on the skimmer down a notch. But if you can see, I'm in a heavy shade. There's a lot of trees. There's a lot of greenery around. Stuff's always going to drop. So you're still going to want to check your skimming area at least once a month and clean any debris off the top. And again, with the lack of sun back here, the chance of algae growing here is kind of on the lower end. But I'm still going to want to check my filters, especially the biofouls, just to make sure the pads themselves aren't collecting too much gunk. I'd pull them at least a couple times a year. I recommend 3 times a year. Pull the pads and clean them in the biofouls. And then in the fall, this would absolutely need a net. There's a lot of leaves, a lot of large mature oaks are going to drop a lot of leaf cover. A net is absolutely important. I'd have the net on by October, keep it on for about 2 months till early to mid-December. Once all the leaves are down and cleaned up, then the net gets pulled off. But that's going to be the most important thing throughout the season to have, is to do a fall netting service on this pond. And then after that, your normal spring cleaning in the springtime. So safety always comes up about pond size and depth. This is a traditional pond, 2-foot depth, and it's done in steps. So you're going to step into a ledge, which is about 8 to 12 inches deep, and then you step down to the deep section. So it is very safe for people and kids. Kids can actually walk in and walk out. Pets like it too, because you can actually climb out through the intake, climb in through the intake. The stream is very shallow, so dogs can go and have a drink. Birds can go in there, and even your kid can literally sit inside. Your kids can sit inside the stream and play with whatever they want to play with, splash around, get wet. So it's a great cooling off area for children as well. Hey everybody, this is Matthew Reale from AquaReale, and I am here at one of our 11x16 ponds. This is an out-of-the-box design. If you went on our website and looked up 11x16 pond, this is the size you would get. Includes a biofouls, skimmer, 11x16 pond, pond plants, lights, and as you can see in this photo, you see some driftwood as well. We've got our skimmer behind me here. Biofouls is up there. All the landscaping on this project was included. The shed was not. The shed is not part of the design. That was kind of a backdrop he had. He wanted something in front of it kind of flowing away and down towards his house. We situated things up on a little hill over there so he'd get the idea of a small stream coming down. That's also included in the design, up to a 4-foot stream we include with this size of a pond. Comes with about a dozen plants in this pond. It's got a fish cave, and like I said, lights are included as well. Skimmer behind me is the 1000 series skimmer. Comes with all the componentry, pump, check valve, pads, and a skimmer itself. Biofouls comes with, the biofoul itself has 2 pads and usually 2 to 3 bags of biobowls go in there. There's also a rock tray we put gravel in, and it has plants planted in it as well. But as you can see, it's a nice composition. What's great about the out-of-the-box designs are none of the boulders are really gigantically big. They're mostly we call them hand-set boulders, 1- and 2-man boulders. This was dug out with a machine, but all the boulders were set by hand. That would end up keeping the cost down in these projects. Custom projects, we use larger boulders, but as you can see, most of these are on the smaller side. So now I'm going to explain the skimmer, which is down to my left over here. I'm going to show you how the skimmer actually really works. I'm going to pull off our lid, get it out of the way, put it over here. This big thing you see right here is the actual physical skimmer basket. As you can see, all your debris gets caught. So once a week you'll come out and you'll get rid of this stuff. I'm gonna put it aside. Down below, you can see this green down here. That's our pre-filter pad. Below that sits the pump. This gray thing right here is a check valve, backflow preventer. You turn off your pump, what's gonna happen is there's a rubber flapper that closes. It keeps all the water in the biofouls. What that does is it allows you to go up to your biofouls, pull all your pads out and clean the box out with all the junk that's in the biofilms flow back into here. Lastly, as you can see the water flowing over here, this is the skimmer flapper. What this does is, this is pulling in all the heavily oxygenated water into the skimmer and distributing it up into the biofilms. That heavily oxygenated water is what powers the bacterial colonies that colonize in that biofilms. So this is why skimmers, not only do they pull this debris in, but they're pulling in all the oxygenated water that sits on the surface and activating the whole system. That's pretty much the componentries of a 1000 series AquaScape skimmer. Biofalls. You might think biofalls, waterfalls. So a general waterfall is just a waterfall. A biofalls is actually a structured box that you cannot see in this photo that's subsurface. That biofalls creates the biologic material in there and mechanical filtration to provide filtration for the pond. It's a physical box that we use to build around it to create a waterfall out of. So the biofalls is a very important part of the filtration of the pond. It's built into the berm. It's designed so you do not see it other than walking over top and physically looking inside and seeing water in there and some filtration pads. But the biofalls and waterfalls are different, but they do provide a way for water to get back to the pond. The biofalls provides biofiltration, very important part of the ecosystem pond. This is the 2500 series AquaScape biofalls. You can see we have plant material, we have some rocks around it. So here's how basically it works. We've got a rock tray. The rock tray is designed for rocks, also designed for plant material. This plant material is a form of biofiltration. Colonizes in these trays, the roots grow through the tray and dangle in the biofalls, just sits there and the water feeds it. So nutrient in the water feeds these plants. I'm gonna do this, number 2. Whoa. These guys are bioballs. This is the filtration media what your colonies of bacteria colonize in. We've got one bag, and I think we even have another bag in here. We got it loaded with bioballs. So this is your main filtration for the pond. This is where your colonies of bacteria love to colonize in here, as well as the rock and gravel. Third thing, and I'm just gonna bring it to the surface. You see this pad here? That's basically the mechanical part. That's gonna trap any extra stuff that comes through that skimmer that doesn't get trapped, gets trapped right here. And then these bioballs, as the oxygen levels feed the bacterial growth, the bacteria breaks down the organics in the water. These plants right here love the excess nutrient that's in these ponds, but this is an extra form of filtration in the biofalls. As you can see, it's got some greenery. In a matter of 2 seasons, this will all be filled in and you really won't even see none of this anymore. It'll be pretty much grown over, but that water is still gonna come out and function. Creates oxygen, filtration, and it's a structural element to build your quote unquote, your waterfall biofalls. So hence the name biofalls and all of its filtration stuff. So all ponds come with a skimmer and biofalls. The biofalls is your filtration element in the pond. It not only does biofiltration, it provides oxygen by the rippling water coming up over the rocks, provides oxygen back to the pond. That oxygen fuels beneficial bacteria, which is housed in the pond and in the biofalls. The bacteria likes to grow and it needs oxygen to fuel the growth, but that's what breaks down the organics in the water. So that's why the biofalls is very important. This project was a 5-day project, start to finish. And that was completion of everything. We're cleaning up the yard and cleaning everything out of here, even cleaning the driveway as well. This pond, with the landscape included, is a $35,000 project. And that's what we use to keep the cost down, is by using smaller hand-set rock. Hey everybody, this is Matthew Reale here from AquaReale. I am standing in front of one of the ponds we did last season for our customer here. This was a bigger than normal system we usually do. It's about an 11 by 20 to 22 pond, has a small stream, has a wetland filter. This end over here, skimmer. It's the largest skimmer we can get. 2 pumps in it. It's a 2-pump system, we call it. One pump operates this wetland over here, 3,000 gallons an hour flow, so it's nice low flow through the filter. The other one's a 3,000 gallon hour pump that feeds this little spitter guy, and down here is a bottom circulator. What a bottom circulator does is It moves all that water from 36 inches down and pushes it up into the system, mixes, sucks it in through the skimmer. You tend to get better clarity and better quality because you don't have all that bottom water just sitting there. It's being moved up into the system. The fountain element is part of the circulator. It was a customer's idea. She had it, so we put in a bypass and add this in. Fish love circulation. They love turbulence. Anywhere there's movement, they love turbulence. Another thing you can see about this pond, plants. We put a lot of plants in, but the customer had her own personal touch to it. The large elephant's ears in the pots, the floating islands, all this adds to, as we like to call it, biofiltration. It's a great part of the pond is biofiltration. You get that a lot with your plant material and your rock and gravel. As you can see, she has a lot of fish. All the koi here are 12 inches and less. They do a great job in eating some of the little bits of algae, in particular on the rocks. Plus, they're pretty, they're great to look at. Our wetland over here, and it's hard to see, but when we were designing this pond, there was one other thing besides, you know, beauty and the pond to think about, where she's got two little French bulldogs. They love getting in the water. Number one is we created a little beach island over here, which is about 4 inches deep, where the dogs can run around in. And over here, we created this little, kind of like it's a little passway in and out because the dogs love climbing in and sitting in these shallow sections. So we had the animals in mind while we were designing this pond. 18-inch deep section here, 36-inch deep section down there. So it has all types of zonation, different plants for different depths, and all in all, it's got good flow. Most of the flow is up in this end, and it's all pushing towards that skimmer. Skimmer's big enough where it's gonna collect a lot of leaves. When a customer goes away on vacation or vacates for a few weeks, these larger skimmers can handle more debris. And sometimes easier to clean out down the road because the baskets are much bigger and they hold a lot more volume of material. If you got the space in your yard, bigger ponds are easier to care for. They tend to go out of balance less with rainstorms and different conditions. They balance faster, and you can do a lot more with it. You can do a lot more larger plant colonies. You can get more fish. It all makes for a nice pond system. This pond also has lights. We got about a half dozen to, I believe, 8 or 9 lights in here. It's a photocell system, so at night they go on, they go off at daylight, but it brings the pond to life at night, which a lot of times come the fall, it's dark by 4 or 5 o'clock, you can't enjoy your water feature coming home from work. Lights brings a whole nother element. Plus you can watch the fish nibble on the ends, eat on the corners. They do all kinds of different things at night than they would do during the day. This is our premium pond package. This pond is a $60,000 install. 11 by 20, wetland filter, largest skimmer with 2 pumps for the double types of filtration, all together to give you a really good end result. This pond is a decent size. Customer has about an acre of land here, and access was very easy. $60,000 price tag would be more if you had worse location, more of a distance off the driveway. We're about 30 feet off the driveway, so the access was great. That also made it easier to get the job completed and done. This is probably a 1.5 week long project. Now I say 1.5 week long, that's working every day, good conditions, you know, no rain coming in there, so it could easily expand to 2 weeks with a little bit of rain and just some delays. As you're seeing, this was a complete project. When we were finished, the yard was a mess. We ended up coming in and putting sod down so that way, like I said, she had dogs, and the dogs are out here all the time. The mud going out of the house wasn't a good thing, so we wanted to make sure when we were done this project, it was a completed element. So we were done, we sodded everything and graded it off so that way the customer could come out when we were finished and basically be able to walk out without bringing mud back in the house. So those are all pieces we took into consideration when we were doing the job as well. You know, it's how far from you know, what's your access like? How far from a driveway or a street is it? Are there animals involved? What are the people going to be using it for? All those come into the play